It's a really nice day, living in the right space. Breathing your grace, got me feeling some kind of way.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Kim from Good News Mental Health. Today is a little bit different because I have my assistant slash colleague slash co-laborer slash friend, Brissa, and we have an exciting announcement that we launched an online course called Be Still to Move Forward. And it's an online course that I've created because I personally frustratingly struggled with being still and having that quiet mind, having that inner peace that allowed me to reflect on my choices to really move forward. So Brissa's here. She took the course. We went through it together. And we're just here to kind of share our experience, what it was like before the course, and now how it's like after the course that we learned it. So, Brissa, welcome to Good News Mental Health Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to kind of doing this with you since we first talked about it. And I'm excited to let everybody else know kind of like a sneak peek behind the curtain of the course that you've created and will be launching soon.
Yeah. So, Be Still, Move Forward was the concept that kind of came to me because nowadays, especially as a working mom, right, it's really hard to be still.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
What is your experience? What are your obstacles of being still?
Being still isn't a foreign statement to me whatsoever. I hear it all the time. You see be still kind of like in the Hobby Lobby decor. And like you see it everywhere, but it's probably one of the hardest things to do personally for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe something that because you do see it in so many places and it's so familiar, I'm very avoidant of it. And be still has been difficult for me because of my childhood. I grew up with a mom who thrives in that busyness of life and was always doing something. And we observed that from her, was busy doing everything for us, had us in a million and one sports and activities. And so there was never a rhythm of being still or practicing that. I think in the concept that you created for the courses was really interesting to me, but it's something that I would be like, I don't know if I could do this because I think it's really hard to be still because I think I measure a lot of my time and productivity. Like, is being still something that I can measure with productivity? In my
Mm-hmm.
surface level brain, I don't. So then I
Mm-hmm.
just avoid it. I think it's
Yeah.
something hard to do.
I think our society is so productivity and like external validation society that we always felt like we're needing to prove that we're okay or we're excelling and this is what success looks like. And be still, you're right. It sounds like opposite of what you want to do to be successful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely me going through the pre-med medical school background and just in that kind of Asian culture where the lines in the CV is the, calculation of your worth, we always had to play almost like a catch up to what the society is expecting of us. So be still is very countercultural.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I've had a lot of Asian friends growing up who have told me the same thing that you have to have the title, but in order to have the title, you have to do a million and one things. And so being still isn't a part of that task
Right.
list to be
Yeah.
successful.
And it's not, yeah. And it's like, I think it's like an Asian culture, but I know that it's not limited to Asian culture. Like I've heard it from things, but I think what I found, I guess the cost of not being still was that my brain was getting tired. I was forgetting things. I'm snappy. I'm irritable because I feel like my mind is like a pressure cooker. And I was
Mhm.
always thinking of like things to do, like, um, reacting to life. I just always felt like I'm reacting to life and I couldn't catch a break. How about you,
Mhm.
Brissa?
Funny. Whether reaction like that was the outcome or not, I don't know. But I was such a busy planner to not have this negative outcome or negative
Mm,
reaction happen. So then, like, it almost feels a little bit opposite, but it's in that same realm. So like I was constantly trying to prevent hurt or pain. And I don't mean like a huge thing of pain, but even it could be something minute in the day, like as a working mom, like thinking of the millions of things to do, right? That you have to fulfill before the kids get home and then after the kids get home. So then I think even prior to being a mother, I was constantly trying to not live in that reactive state. But ironically, it ended up being that way, right? Like I put myself in that position, even though the whole goal was to not.
Yeah. I definitely have that. Like I have this almost like anxiety thing. Like whenever the garbage disposal is on, like I'm thinking like, okay, if the garbage disposal is on and I accidentally put my hand in there, like what would I do next? Like
Yes.
these like catastrophe that I create in my mind. And then
Yeah.
I'm like thinking like, like you and I love like standard operation, right? Like what is an SOP in case I put my hand in the garbage disposal when it's an accident?
Like,
So
who's gonna help me? Who's gonna do this? Yeah.
yes. So I feel like my mind was constantly racing, creating SOP for potential outcomes that are negative. I totally 100% agree with you. And in mental health provider, while on the outside we look like pro planning, we got it all together. We know what to do if I accidentally put my hand in the garbage disposal. Like we know what to do if and then these things happen. But the problem is that we're maybe now we're not reactive and we're not like irritable and snapping at everybody, but we're not present with the people, with ourselves. Do you resonate with that, or how do you see that in your life?
Yes, I think being present wasn't something I grew up with again. And then when like meditation, the word, not like the concept, obviously that's lived forever, but the word meditate in quiet time and being still came about. And it was like on the rise of social media and people were doing it and talking. All of the gurus of like self-development were talking about how great it is to meditate and why you should do it. And all the apps were coming out. So this was pre-COVID. And I jumped on board before I was a mom. I was meditating every single day. I saw a really big change in me when I was doing things like that and being still. So I know the amazing benefits that come with it. Then after being a mom, I don't think being present is a concept that I do day to day naturally or want to do. I sometimes am avoided because I think the task list grew so long. So yes,
Yeah.
I think present in a moment is not something, I mean, the concept, as you said, familiar, but in a day to day, I don't think I do that enough.
Yeah. And especially when you have kids, your stakes are higher, right? So it's not just garbage disposal for your hand. That's accidents like garbage disposal for your kid's hand. And what if they get sick? And what if they get really sick? We have to kind of be more hyper aroused and hyper vigilant, like always looking out for what could go wrong. And it's really hard to be still. And what would you say the cost is for you of not being still? For me it just constantly added pressure in my head and there was no release, that I felt like it was really making me inattentive, forgetful, irritable. I would say even to the extent of bitter and resentful. What would you say that you kind of saw symptoms of that?
You totally read my mind. I think that for me, there isn't much difference from what you said. Have a shorter temper with my family, my spouse. I expect him to read my mind when I have all these things, which is obviously unfair to him and everybody else. But I feel like there's this constant pressure. And just like an example. So for those watching, Dr. Kim and I are in like the San Antonio area. It's very cold to us Central Texans. I know not to other people, but it's also like raining and windy and cold. And so my brain this morning, I sent off the kids to school. I was thinking of like a million and one things. I thought of, for example, our like workbook that we were talking about of also for the course. So I was like, oh, there's all these things I have to do for client 1, client 2, client 3, and I have to do them today versus tomorrow now, because tomorrow, due to the weather, they might cancel school if it freezes over. And when I have the kids at home, I might not be able to do that. Or based on the weather today, they might get sick. So I'm going to have to keep them home. And then I'm going to have to like, once again, be like not on track with tasks like I was in December. So then it's like I do it to myself,
Right,
obviously.
right.
But I think that was like a really more recent good example of like the pressure that I put on myself. No one else is putting it on me. I could very easily be like, hey, Dr. Kim, school's closed tomorrow. This happened. And you'd be like, no, that's totally fine, you know, but I don't go through those scenarios. I go through like worse outcome, just
Mm,
mentioned earlier.
yeah, like as you're kind of talking about it, like I'm like, yeah, I definitely think like that too. And I definitely did a lot more of that before when for me, this journey and this cycle of catastrophizing and over planning and making sure that I have SOP planned out for any catastrophizing events, it had to stop because I was saying really mean things to my family. And I was like, I got to the point that I don't want to be this angry. So it's like, where is this pressure coming from? Right. And I got therapy myself, you know, and I definitely leaned on my faith and my support group for this. And it just seemed like everybody was struggling with this, and we just didn't know how to release the pressure. And it, this course, you know, if I can kind of briefly introduce a course a little bit, it is like a wine press of all the stuff that I learned in the last 6 years, including my psychiatry training, including my therapy session with my therapist, including my, you know, faith and like Bible study times. And I just really extracted 6 years of work into this course. And I break it down using a very popular and very efficient and effective cognitive behavioral therapy concepts. I kind of did my personal touch of using CBT concept to really tap into our inner child, to our past, you know, really um, highlighting my training as a child psychiatrist and a therapist. And then we wrap it up with kind of parenting course for our inner child so that we can really move forward, because the whole goal is not to be still and have that release of pressure. The whole goal is so that we can connect and move forward with our lives and make better choices. Um, so I'm really excited about this course. And Brissa, you went through the gauntlet with me. This course is supposed to last 2 to 3 weeks, but we managed to do it in 2 to 3 hours. There's some tears were shed. You know, you got in touch with your inner child really quickly. So I feel
Yes.
kind of bad for that. But tell me how the course was for you, definitely.
Yes. So I think that the intro of this podcast will just have a quote of me saying, "You will not make me cry, Dr. Kim." But, not again. But it was very emotional to take the time to sit down and reflect on, yes, you're being present with yourself. So that was one concept of practicing that. The second is like being present in a moment that is of your past life. So like the inner child. So like you went backwards in time to really examine who you are as a child and somehow being present in that time frame. And then with that kind of tiny person, your mini you. And so I think, and I've mentioned this before, that that was my favorite part of that course because it really allowed me to give grace to some small child who was me, because it's really hard sometimes to give grace to like me as a full grown adult. Like that's that voice in your head, like, oh, you should be doing more or better. Or, but I can't say that to a little girl. Like that would be really mean. And so then when I look at her face, I'm like, oh, that's me. And so that was really a more of a breakthrough for me. That was only a glimpse. Like you said, only we did it really fast, but I can only imagine if you're sitting there for a longer period of time, taking your time to do it as well, and then having you guide that person, you're not alone in the conversation or the exercise, is so helpful because it does feel like you're the psychiatrist in the room, the counselor, the therapist, and the professional who is not leaving us alone to our feelings fully. Like there's somebody kind of like to hold you. And that's why I like the concept of an online course, because it feels guided still, even though it's not live.
Yeah, I agree. And that was my personal experience that I made it kind of didactic and teaching point and hand-holding point, because you're right. The most common reaction when I go to that part of the course is like, so let me just backtrack. So we use our emotions, and I believe that our emotions are window to our souls. And a lot of times our spirit and our inner child gets neglected. And what I do is very creatively use that current situation to really open the window to our childhood, like Brissa said. And it really brings up the childhood memories that we never thought of. I think, Brissa, you can kind of testify to this where you're like, whoa, I did not even think about that. But that's so cool because you're right. You had a mom that was busy, 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 go, 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 and do this, do that, you know? There was no be still for little Brissa. And now the big Brissa is kind of allow that little Brissa to kind of catch a breath and be still and be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I just find that in my work, you know, seeing patients and seeing clients is that as we build these truth and grace firmly in our childhood memories, that's how we really move forward because we're not outrunning our childhood curse, you know, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that, do you think that this course is, it's not easy. It's easy, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy. The concepts, we've heard of some of these concepts, we just don't know what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so how to apply them to our lives, especially in that inner child sense. I liked the breakdown of it. I liked that it wasn't just all convoluted, everything connected to each other too. So you kind of really like thought of a lot of different audience members and the ideal person sitting in front of you. So I think it's going to be really helpful for someone to take their time with it.
Right. Because, like you said, you did meditations before, and these are practices and these are exercises. But I think what this course did was like really connected to who am I as a person and who was I and who will I be so that the meditation, you know, guided meditation is not just an exercise that you check in and check out and you check the box, but really understanding yourself and your story and your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what were some of the limitations in, you know, you were very avid, you know, meditation, you know, you practice meditation every day. How would you say that this course is a little bit different from other self-help course or self-improvement courses or books that you read?
Well, I think it goes back to that mindset of productivity. So if I pick up a self-help book, um, there's like, do this today, and do this tomorrow to feel better, right? And then, or
Mm,
like do ABC. So there's some measure of productivity in all of those books. Naturally, my personality likes those, right?
mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm,
sometimes the actionable instead of, hey, let's be present and still, I'll be like, well, who's going to award me for this achievement? I don't gain a skill
mm,
set. You do, but
mm-hmm,
we don't
mm-hmm.
think of like that outcome enough that you're going to be more whole at the end of it by letting go of so many things.
Yeah, yeah,
And I always think, I want to be more whole by adding more things on my
you're
plate. If I
right.
learn this skill set, I will do that. But it's truly the opposite. If you let go, you become more whole. And I think that's the difference, that everything else has these, like, you got to do all these things in order to feel better or do better, drink less caffeine, do more of this. And I've been through so many of those self-help books. Like, as a
Mm-hmm.
thriving wannabe perfectionist, I try to always improve my life or lifestyle and the quality of my kids as well. And it is exhausting because
Mm-hmm.
maybe all they need is some time to reflect, be themselves, play by themselves, versus me like, let's do 5 million activities today. So you're constantly busy, now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, Brissa, you and I did the course, the fast track, I will say, like a
Mhm.
month or two ago. How did you notice you changing or your life changing when you start to tap in these skills or concepts, you know, from the course? Like, how did it change for you?
You increase your self-awareness a lot more. And I consider myself to be a pretty highly self-aware individual, but I obviously was missing, and everyone's always missing that
Mm-hmm.
portion of self awareness to feel, to cry, to do the things that we avoid in life. So it's like the course was inviting us to do all the things we avoid. And so
Mm,
that one it's so different from other things. I think, again, we take online courses to gain a programming coding skill set to do this. You'll see this at the end of the course, you'll see this. But I think with this online course, it is a lifetime thing you can open up again and say, you know what, I'm starting to feel frazzled again. What are the
Mm,
things that I need to do instead of like, I can't afford psychiatry, for example, somebody saying that I can open up this course that I have lifetime access to and could go back in. So for me, it's that the really special gift of self-awareness. And I've obviously only taken it once, like the mini fast track, but I can only imagine if I do it again and again and again, what other core memories come up for me that I wasn't thinking of before. It's not always going to be the same, right? The content may stay the same, the foundations of psychiatry that haven't changed over time or theories don't change. But when you ask that person to think again, and then next time think again of this moment, I think something else comes up because everyone
yeah.
is so different and you just don't have this one trauma. You have all these different traumas that can be explored over a lifetime doing this course.
I think what I think hear you say is like, this is not like external productivity course, but this is more making yourself whole and like ability to reflect and also protect and connect with yourself. And I love that because whenever I talk to my patients or just anyone, everybody's overloaded with pressure.
Mhm.
And they and everybody says, tell me just what to do to be
Yeah.
happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell me just what to be, what to do, what to eat, what to drink. We all want that because it's a very concrete, list of do's and don'ts. And we secretly just want to make it easy like that. But what I realize is that that's just adding more pressure. And a lot of times I tell my patients and my clients is like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going
Mhm.
to tell you what you don't have to do. And
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's not, you don't have to achieve to make yourself feel we have to feel worthy without achieving first so that we can really be confident and secure with who we are so that we can achieve great things and maybe great things that is authentically you. You're not just copying and pasting other people's successes and their lives. And what I would hear you also say that is that this course was so practical and like in real life that you can replay it and have different results. And it's that wholeness and that awareness, like it can be reproduced again and again. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't think that it's one of those things where like you can do anything once and then forget about it. Anything. I
Mm,
can go to like an in-person workshop and be super inspired. And then how many times do we all forget the content, forget what to do? We walk out of the room. We don't do what they tell us to do to feel better or whatever, like just real life hits. So I think it's important to always have in our arsenal something that we can. I don't have to go to a live workshop every single time to gain insights, recalling that the online course is at my fingertips and that every time I do it, although it's very hard to just kind of go back and really do a self examination and analysis, it always feels better. And you want that like dopamine feel at the end of like release, because that's how
mm,
I felt. I'm like, I had no idea I had like this pent up bitterness about things or the way that some things that were said to me when I was a child and then as an adolescent and why I behaved the way I did. So it there's so many things I have not explored yet. And I feel like
mm-hmm.
in that one time, I'm like, wow, if I felt so good at this one time, I can only imagine if I explored this other circumstance in my life. And then this one, like it's endless. And I think that you let go of that, become a little bit more whole. And then the next time you do it, do another circumstance or think through that situation more.
Yeah, definitely. One of the feedback that I got from another client doing this course was now she was able to reflect like, oh, why did I snap at that person? Does that have to do with my childhood? So that you can kind of reflect back to your childhood like really quickly. It's interesting because whenever I talk to a group of people, and Brissa, you were there at Working Mom workshop, everybody knows that am I reacting because of what happened in childhood? Like everybody kind of knows it has to sometimes do with my past, right? Like I'm getting triggered because of what happened to me in the past or as a child. Like everybody kind of like nuances it or like kind of touches on it. But what this course does is really holds your hand so that you can explore your past, so that you can make that connection. Oh, that's why. And then you can really be present for the present and also live for your future in a very different way.
Yeah, let me emphasize that part too, is like, it's not just childhood or childhood trauma as a whole, because you know how like sometimes like a lot of adults will joke and be like, oh, it's probably because of childhood trauma. But like
Mhm.
nobody really thinks, wait, what specific time or point in my life? So it's like you have to backtrack. So like you finally as an adult recognizing why it is that you snapped, why you treated this person this way, why did you get hurt? Why did you overthink? Um, you gain such a big, valuable skill set in emotional intelligence, because now when you want to behave that way, you're like, oh, no, maybe I shouldn't. And so I'll give another really quick example of this.
Mhm.
Was like my husband and I are in the thick of it, of raising two littles, as you know. So I think, I don't know what happened, but like I was snappy because it was just an overstimulating day with the kids and this was supposed to happen and all this stuff. So then I totally gave him the cold shoulder, and I was like not really realizing that I was doing it. And so he had done all these really nice things, and he finally sat down and was like, hey, like, you're doing some sort of like emotional manipulation, because like all of a sudden, like I'm trying to do all these things and you're not noticing. And I know something's wrong, but you're not verbalizing it. And when he said that, I like woke up and it was like, I am ignoring. Why am I doing that? And I immediately, this was after your course, I,
Mhm.
I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I'm being that mean girl in the schoolyard. That like, I remember just one circumstance where I was always this nice, kind girl, but I wanted to be part of like the mean girl gang to have more friends. And so I did. And I was like bullying this other girl and ignoring her. And that only happened once. And I remember thinking, that was awful. I'll never do that again. Right. But of course, as an
Mm.
adult, like I don't know where that habit came from, where it's like, you know what, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And that's rude. That is really, and so that helped for him to one, try and verbalize how he was feeling. So it's almost like you do also need somebody else who is highly emotionally aware. um
Mhm.
and two, after this course, I realized where it came from, why I started
Mm.
doing that, even if in the moment I didn't know that I was doing it, but somebody called
Yeah.
me out. So I think that was like very important.
That's so good.
Mhm.
And I love that you were secure enough and also protected enough that you can not snap back. Because if my husband said that, I'll be like, well, duh, like I could have easily just fought back with all the arguments why he deserved that emotional manipulation. But I love that you felt protected enough, you felt secure enough to be like really humble and welcome conviction, because that is also a sign of strength and maturity, right? Like we're not reacting. You're able to kind of reflect, be like, oh yeah, I used to do that too. I wonder why that's happening. And while you might not have all the answers, like you have that room for reflection and humility. And that is really awesome thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, of course. I think it's really because of the course outcomes. Again, like it can happen at any moment in your daily life where you can take the basics. And then I gave myself grace, and I never do when that happened, because I was like, oh, it was child me reacting. I need to
Mm,
heal that child me a little bit more, to tell her like, hey, every time you have an issue, just say it out loud,
I love
and like,
that.
don't do that. And so that was something that I'm now practicing, because that was like, recent with like the holiday, and like everything's crazy and busy and the kids were sick. And so I was just like being super snappy too. And so it really, in the moment I was like, oh, how embarrassing, and then I was like, well, he's
Mm-hmm,
not trying to embarrass me, he's not
mm-hmm,
saying
mm-hmm,
mean things to me, but I felt like embarrassed of my
mm-hmm.
behavior. And then that's, the course was really helpful in just recognizing, saying like, oh, don't be ashamed of that. It happened
Right.
because of this. It was tied to something. It didn't just come out of nowhere.
Right. And I love that you were able to say to your inner child, like, hey, it's okay. Like you're kind of frustrated. And if you have a problem, just say it, because that's a very maternal and parental voice that we are able to do that, because we live with a lot of negative voices in our heads. Like we have what I call the hater's voice. And in the course,
Mm.
we recognize a hater voice creeping in whenever we do any deep therapy work. At the end of the course, we have affirmation and validation worksheet where we start to replace the hater's voice with something more maternal and nurturing. And I just love that you already picked up that nurturing voice inside your head for your inner child, because that's the whole point of this course. You got A++ on my course.
Well, I love to hear that.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this course is to free you from your past. And a lot of times our life is like a ball of yarn that's so tight. And this course is a hand-guided course where you can kind of have that time for yourself and invest in yourself so that you can kind of tease out the yarn and say, oh, that's why, that's why, that's why. And what are you with all that emotion that's flooding is that now you have a gentle and guided provider's voice to guide you through it and replace the negative voice with a nurturing one so that you can really move forward. Brissa, do you have any last word of encouragement for anyone who's like, oh my gosh, I know what Dr. Kim and Brissa is talking about. That is totally me. I do have negative voice in my head, and that's probably from my childhood. I just don't know. I want to buy this course, but I don't know. Like, what is your last few words for them?
Yeah, I would say forget all of the shiny object courses out there in gaining a skill set, in marketing, and ads, in whatever. Like, those will be there. Those will always be there. They'll be improved over time. You need to prioritize yourself and your mental health at the beginning of this year, especially. If you can make that an outcome for if you want to give yourself whatever timeline, but let's say you want to examine how you react to things at the beginning of the year and then take the course. And then at the end of the year, it's going to be such a great reflection of where you were, how much you've changed in all of that time. But prioritize mental health courses over those other ones because you need this first and you're going to have these tools for a lifetime. Dr. Kim makes any updates, she'll make updates to that, but you'll have those for you. And then you can proceed to be your little productive self in other areas. But I think you truly, the world would not be so divided like it is today, not just our country, but the world, if we prioritized our mental health, if we had tools, if we paused, there wouldn't be all these wars. I'm like, nobody argue with me on that one. I'm like, we would be so at peace with ourselves and not wanting more of that, of whatever it is, chaos out there, or trying to be better than somebody else, trying to be better than another country or genocide. None of that, just because our mental health is not prioritized today. We don't listen to our inner selves, our needs, our wants, our hurt, our pain, our traumas. And we just want that logic, productive next course. So I know that those were just such long words said, but I think that prioritize this course. Don't, get stuck or trapped in that cycle of wanting to take all these other courses, which I love to do, that will just gain your skill set. That can wait, but do prioritize your mental health and take this course.
Yeah. And like Brissa said, I think you'll have the lifetime access to this course and you can play it over and over again so that it's kind of like a reset, so that you're learning the skills to connect with yourself so that you can really move forward. Well, Brissa, I am so excited that we got to do this. And I'm so excited that what you took, the Cliff Notes fast track course, is already touching your life. And not only your life, but your husband's life and your kids' life. And you're really ending the generational cycle of busyness, and that is so powerful. And that is your legacy. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so thankful and honored that my course had a very small part in that. 99% you and what you're doing and your love and care that you have for yourself and your family.
Yay. And I'm excited because I didn't think of that too. The people who will benefit are those around you. And we can add that. It's not just you, but all your relationships will improve. So thank you so much for taking me through the fast track course. I also was very excited to talk with you today about it, and more to come. We're excited to announce this for you.
Thank you so much, Brissa. And everybody, if you're interested in this course, I'll put the link to get the course below. And then and if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at hi@uejinkim.com. We'll love to connect with you and show you how we can help.